Hey y'all, we are on day 45. You know what that means? We're halfway there. We're halfway there. You made it halfway through the Psalms. We're halfway there. Yes, we have made it halfway through the book of Psalms. I am so excited, y'all. We are cruising through this. I hope that you are enjoying yourselves. If you haven't been able to keep up, like I always say, it's okay. Just hop back on with us. We have 45 more days to go, and it's going to be great. So let's go ahead. Let's get started on today's Psalms. So today we are looking at Psalms 85 and 86. I'll start with Psalm 85, and I am reading from the New Living Translation. Lord, you pour out your blessings on your land. You restored the fortunes of Israel. You forgave the guilt of your people. Yes, you covered all their sins. You held back your fury. You kept back your blazing anger. Now restore us again, O God of our salvation. Put aside your anger against us once more. Will you be angry with us always? Will you prolong your wrath to all generations? Won't you revive us again so your people can rejoice in you? Show us your unfailing love, O Lord, and grant us your salvation. I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. But let them not return to their foolish ways. Surely his salvation is near to those who fear him, so our land will be filled with his glory. Unfailing love and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Truth springs up from the earth, and righteousness smiles down from heaven. Yes, the Lord pours down his blessings. Our land will yield its bountiful harvest. Righteousness goes as a herald before him, preparing the way for his steps. Psalm 85 is a psalm or prayer of restoration, and you can kind of see the progression here. In the first 3 verses, it's a recollection of God's grace and his mercy and his goodness. And then we have the petition to God, the crying out. There's a lament here. How long will you stay angry? Won't you revive us? And then finally, we end with the people's trust in God. And once again, we see that the people are looking to the past to stand in confidence of what God will do in the future. I want to move to verses 10 and 11 because to me, they're just beautiful. They're very poetic. It says, unfailing love and truth have met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed. Truth springs up from the earth, and righteousness smiles down from heaven. So here we have the meeting of love and truth, the coming together of righteousness and peace, and truth and righteousness stretching upward and downward to meet in the middle. And then, here there's this interconnectedness between love, truth, and righteousness and peace, and it all is stemming from God. And this is also where I see the goodness and the peace in this entire psalm, kind of the all is well. So for my revelation, I want to go ahead and look at verse 8 here. It says, I listen carefully to what God the Lord is saying, for he speaks peace to his faithful people. The line here, he speaks peace to his faithful people. Many may know the Hebrew word for peace is shalom. It means peace. It also means quiet, tranquility, and contentment. And this also speaks, this entire verse here speaks to the importance of our discernment. When we are waiting on God to say something to us, to reply to us, it's important that we have a discerning ear. Anything that comes to us that is creating this fear, this anxiousness, this uncertainty is not of God. Now, I don't want you to get that confused with being uncomfortable, because often God says or asks us to do things that are uncomfortable, but you can discern by knowing what is the overall feeling of it. Is this something that is meant to hurt you, or is this something that is meant to harm you? Is this something that is causing an internal peace, or is this causing an internal struggle that you are unsure of? And always remember, you can double check what you are hearing with the word. But also this speaks to, when we are looking for God in an uncertain time, in kind of a chaotic time, we have to be willing to wait for him to answer, right? He will provide us that unspeakable peace, that unspeakable comfort, the joy, the kind that you can have when things are going wrong, but within you, you have something that doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense, but it's unshakable. That's the type of peace and comfort we are looking for from God. Now, it doesn't mean that we will always be comfortable, but it means that God's comfort is with us, and we can stand in whatever situation, like the psalmist is here, and look at God and know that his peace will guide us to the next step in our journey. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to go to Psalm 86, and I'm going to read from the NIV. Hear me, Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. Guard my life, for I am faithful to you. Save your servant who trusts in you. You are my God. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I call to you all day long. Bring joy to your servant, Lord, for I put my trust in you. You, Lord, are forgiving and good, abounding in love to all who call to you. Hear my prayer, Lord. Listen to my cry for mercy. When I am in distress, I call to you because you answer me. Among the gods there is none like you, Lord. No deeds can compare with yours. All the nations you have made will come and worship before you, Lord. They will bring glory to your name. For you are great and do marvelous deeds. You alone are God. Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart that I may fear your name. I will praise you, Lord my God, with all my heart. I will glorify your name forever. For great is your love toward me. You have delivered me from the depths, from the realm of the dead. Arrogant foes are attacking me, O God. Ruthless people are trying to kill me. They have no regard for you. But you, Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Turn to me and have mercy on me. Show your strength in behalf of your servant. Save me because I serve you just as my mother did. Give me a sign of your goodness, that my enemies may see it and be put to shame. For you, Lord, have helped me and comforted me. Well, we are back to another Psalm of David, and this one right here is very personal. This psalm alternates between requests and declarations, but even though we have requests here, this psalm leaves no doubt that the writer knows God as sovereign, knows God as good, and knows God as his Redeemer. So throughout the psalm, David uses very personal words. He calls God Adonai 7 times here, and that means Lord, but it means Lord in a more reverent way. David also refers to himself as God's servant, and then David also uses the word Yahweh for God, which is God's personal name. So we see here in this psalm that there is an intimacy that comes out not only through how the words are put together, but through the words themselves here. And you get this feel that David is calling out to God as his father, right? Not to God as some distant, high being, but as someone who he is comfortable with, someone that he knows he can go to and confide in here. And then there are certain themes that pop out in between David's requests. We have him crying out to God as sovereign, like I said before, God as creator. He is kind of trying to what's the word I want to say? He's trying to draw out God's goodness and righteousness. And then he also speaks of God as his salvation and of his love. So the theme here is definitely God's overall goodness and his power and his might, and most of all, his love. So for my revelation, I want to move into verse 11. Now this verse is not only a foundational verse for this psalm, but it should also be applied to our lives as foundational for how we receive teaching, for how we receive lessons, not only through God's word, but through God's people. Now, prior to verse 11 here, in verses 9 and 10, David is speaking of God's sovereignty. So this is a setup to verse 11. David is saying here that there are no deeds that are better than God, because God is creator and everything and anything is under him. So this is what David is desiring. In verse 11 it says, "Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart that I may fear your name." So let's break this down a little bit. Teach here comes from the Hebrew word yara. I can't roll my R's, guys. Yara. This word literally means to throw, to cast, to shoot. Typically it is used when talking about shooting an arrow. But here it means more to point out or to show, to teach, or to instruct. So here we see that David is not just asking for a mere instruction for God. He's not looking for a go read this, type of instruction. He's asking God to point it out, to take the time to show him, right? Show him how to aim so that it has impact. Show him, instruct him in such a way that it has that it creates actual change. And David wants this, and he tells us why here, so that he can rely on God's faithfulness. Rely here is actually more accurately translated as walk or go. It comes from the Hebrew word halach. So David is asking God to instruct him so that he walks through life in God's truth and faithfulness. David wants his conduct, he wants his mannerism, he wants his entire being to be in alignment with God's truth, to be in alignment with God's certainty and his faithfulness. And then in addition to that, David wants an undivided heart. This translates to more of a joined or a united heart. So he wants a heart that is connected, that is joined with God's. And he wants to do this so he can fear God's name, right? Meaning he can stand in awe and this deserved honor of who God is. So what happens when hearts are joined? Think about it. If you have a heart joined with someone, your emotions are connected. Your dialect begins to come the same. Even mannerisms, you start to have the same mannerisms. You share the same morals and values. It is the deepest connection possible. And all things flow from the heart, so all things flow from that connection. And so it is the aligning of the heart that allows for a humbling position, because you understand and you know God and are able to stand in that reverence of him. So David here is not asking God to just show him how to better follow the law. He's not asking for God to show him how to feed the poor, even though those are important things. He is asking for life-altering knowledge. He is asking for God's heart and for life-changing instruction and alignment, so that he can stand in perfect reverence, so that he understands just who God is and how great God is and how vast his love is, so that everything he does, everything he says, his entire being is in reverence and honor to God. Wow, right? And what a lesson for us. That we too should not just be asking God how to live out certain points of the Bible or how to do something specifically, although that is important. At the heart of it, we should be asking God to teach us his ways so that we can rely on his faithfulness so that we have an undivided heart, so that we can fear his name in the right manner. All right, go back through these Psalms for today, reread them, view them with a different perspective this time. If you haven't dug into the historical context, go ahead and do that. Pull out some Hebrew words. Learn something today, guys. And I'm excited for the second half of these Psalms. Thank you for joining me. I will see you all back here on tomorrow. Bye.